it's very infuriating when people talk about what a genius Bill Gates is. And Bill Gates is going to save our schools.
Yeah, I know.
And Mark Zuckerberg is going to save our schools. College dropouts with rich parents who pointed them in the direction of an angel investor.
Guys who've never spent a day teaching class. They know how to fix education. Not the people who actually know how to teach kids. They don't know what to do. And it's the corporatization of education. We've talked about it, so it's bad. Charter schools. Most of the charter schools, like 80% of them, do worse or no better than the other public schools in their districts. So, and charter schools have a lot of advantages. They get to handpick their teachers. They get to handpick their students. They get a lot of. So, again, let me just reiterate one more time what charter schools were originally invented for. Was you weren't supposed to build a school system of charter schools. You were supposed to have a couple of schools where master teachers were allowed to experiment, find out what worked, and then you would replicate that in the rest of the schools. Well, that's not what they're doing now.
I went to some Catholic schools where the teachers like to experiment.
That's something different.
But that's not what they're doing now. What they're doing is they're trying to make a bunch of charter schools. That's how you save the schools. I make every school a charter school. Have them all do it different in every school, and it's all it is union bus bashing. There's no accountability.
If you're a charter school, you don't have to be
unions.
non-union. And my wife is very involved in politics in Los Angeles and zoning issues. And what she's discovered is a lot of these charter schools are set up by rich people who are gentrifying a neighborhood, and they don't want their kids going to school with black people.
Yeah.
So they offer up a charter school.
Anybody can open a charter school.
Anybody can open.
Anybody can. Mm-hmm. And we know plenty of people that have worked at charter schools. They're not so happy because they're not just working Monday through Friday. They're also asked to come in on Saturday and teach a lesson and open it up to the community, but you're not really being paid.
Yeah.
You have to donate even more time. And who do they attract? Young teachers. And they're willing to do anything because they want a job. So then you have these indentured servants, and you have these people that don't want to question authority because they're young and they want to have a job. Mm-hmm. I feel sorry for new young teachers.
You're a teacher,
Yes,
Stephanie.
I am. I'm a 20-year veteran.
How bad is it getting?
Well, personally, I happen to teach at a great school.
But they raised your class sizes this year, did they?
I used to be able, in the state of California, you used to have a 20-to-1. So I would teach about 100 students a day. Now, on average, I teach 180 students every day.
How many?
180
so almost
high
double.
School students, teenagers. And I'm supposed to make sure that they're proficient at reading and writing, critical thinking, and be able to demonstrate strong essay writing skills and meet the standards in the California state standards for 9th and 10th grade. And I do a pretty great job at it.
She does a great job. She's supposed to read 180 essays. When she gives out an assignment, 180 essays she's supposed to read. 180.
But I'll tell you right now, how's it going? We just finished reading To Kill a Mockingbird. And
I'm surprised that hasn't been banned.
Well, it used to be I'm sure it was probably at once upon a time on the book of list of censored books.
There was just a documentary about Harper Lee last night on
It's
PBS.
fascinating.
Yeah.
I just watched about 30 minutes. But anyways, it's a 50-year anniversary, and we got to have this special moment together by watching the film after we had read it. And it's so striking because Harper Lee highlights how it's a Christian town. Every Sunday they all go to church. Every Sunday. Yeah. But there's a disease. And the disease is racism. And, we haven't made any kind of real strides right now in our culture, looking back at when that book was published and here and now. And my students made the comparison to Trayvon Martin. But also, the same week we finished reading the book, the Supreme Court comes out and they're okay with strip search.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like when you sit and say, I don't have any hope for the future, as a teacher and an educator, I want to have hope for the future because I see the potential of these kids. But I think, education is being slowly chopped apart.
Education is bad for the Republican Party. It's
Well,
bad
David
for them
Frum's
critical thinking.
to have educated people.
It's well known. David Frum, I have a clip that I played ad nauseum on my show last year. David Frum, former speechwriter for George Bush, coined the term axis of evil. He said, I have a tape of him saying that it's it's well known that more educated you get, the less likely you are to be a Republican. He said, we've already lost the 4-year college people. Now we're starting to lose the 2-year college people. And if we lose high school, we're dead. So that's what that's what he said last year, and I have that clip. And so they got rid of him. He can't go around saying stuff like that.
And look what they're doing to the colleges right now. So the junior colleges in Santa Monica, right? They're going to have a 2-tier paying system where kids can pay the regular tuition, but if you really want to get to the class, you can pay $280 a unit and have access to the class.
Right, but they overturned that at Santa Monica.
But don't you see that as something that potentially that's going to continue? So whereas a lot of my friends, when we were in high school, we were going to go to the junior college because that was accessible to us.
Right.
And so
this is what made California great.
Oh,
this is
yes.
what made America great. Free education. Free education. And
why do people get mad? They go, "Oh, do you want to go to school for free? Everybody wants something for free?"
Because they
yes, education should be free.
Well, when the whole Wisconsin teachers union thing happened, people on Fox were actually saying, "Well, teachers, they only have to work till 3."
Yes.
I mean, they were presenting teachers as deadbeats,
lazy slackers,
who are feeding on our society,
yes.
and
bloodsuckers,
presenting them as the villains.
Well, grading 130 essays in one night. Here's the thing. I'm watching Mad Men.
And you get summer off.
That's right. For free.
Yeah.
I don't get paid.
I'm watching Mad Men. It's my father's generation. These guys came home. This is why the schools are messed up. Did your father fight in World War II?
No, he had kids.
Did your father fight in
My father covered World War II and was involved in a lot of action.
My dad was too young, by the way.
So my father...
Mine too. Let's weigh in about my dad.
Steph and I aren't as old as you guys.
So my father fought in World War II. Liberal, was against the Vietnam War.
Oh.
But he was part of the greatest generation. The greatest generation, this is why the schools are all screwed up. They came home, they had the GI Bill. My father came from abject poverty, and he got what was coming to him. He got the GI Bill, and he took the bite out of America that the Statue of Liberty promised. And when he was raising me, he raised me to be a little competitive. And I looked around in my neighborhood, and all the fathers from the greatest generation were teaching their sons and daughters to be competitive with their fellow citizens. So my generation is very competitive. And it's competitive to get into a good school. And one person's success is another person's failure. That the universe is limited, and you get yours before somebody gets it. And that's what happened to our schools. Most Americans, especially the ones who send their children to private schools, don't care about the other students. They only care about their child.
Right.
Because if you have $40,000 a year to send your kid to Harvard Westlake, what you're doing is you're not investing in your child. You're investing in the decline of 100 kids in your local school, because you know what $40,000, Steph? What could $40,000 that one little kid gets?
That pays one salary for a teacher, a new teacher. That would pay their salary.
So more people would benefit, in other words, if a venture capitalist or a comedy writer or a doctor or a lawyer were to spend the $40,000. We're not to spend the $40,000 on, say, Harvard Westlake, but we're to invest it in a local public school. Who would benefit from that? Everybody in the classroom,
right,
from that $40,000.
Well, supposedly the way you invest it in the public school is through taxes, right? But they don't want
pay taxes.
They don't want to pay those taxes, and they rather have the money for themselves, so they can send their kids to the fancy school. And
that's why they want the vouchers,
right? Because they don't want other kids in America to succeed. We are a gated community.
And it turns out they happen to be kids of color.
Which
these aren't your European American kids that they're neglecting. These are, when you see violence on campus, that's just reflecting what's happening in the community. And why isn't there more violence, after seeing everything that's happened to our country in the last 10 years? The decline in the last 30, 40?
See, I'm morally superior to a lot of people because both I'm a vegetarian. Mm-hmm. Both my kids are products of the public schools, inner city public schools. They turned out great. My kids are perfect. All my kids are great.
Do you call Hollywood inner city?
Well, really? It's a lot of people who come from my... Don't mention where I live. But people who come from my background would consider where my kids went to an inner city
school. Okay.
Public school. They would look at the ethnic makeup of the school, and they would say, "There's no way I'm sending my kids to this school." Well, do you want to know what the test scores? No, it's look at this. My kids turned out great because they realized early on that it's not about them; it's about us. And that's the secret to education. There's just a limited amount of information that you can cram into these idiots' heads. Children are idiots. There's just so much you can teach them. You have to teach them how to be sociable and how to share. And the only way you do that is by sending them to a public school, not a private school. Private schools should be outlawed in this country.
I agree.
And we started talking about satyrs and I'll tell you a story. I took a class at my temple. And the rabbi, who turned out to be an idiot, said that the New York City public schools saved the Jewish intellectual tradition. That when Hitler was killing all the Jews in Europe, the New York City public schools, for free, were educating the poor Jews, the refugees. And if it weren't for the New York City public schools, much of the city college, much of the intellectual tradition of the Jews would have been killed by Hitler. So I said, how many of you have returned the favor by sending your kids to public school? And most of them said, well, it's different now. And I said, how is it different? Well, the public schools are no blah, blah. But because you're not sending, they're bad because you're not sending your kids to public school. You got yours.
And that's the idea of not allowing, when you have a single-payer health care in other countries and they don't allow private health care, and it's because if everyone is in this system, they're going to make sure it's a good system.
Right.
If the rich people have to be in this system too, they're going to make sure the system works. And that's the whole theory anyway, so I don't know.
It's not a theory, it's a fact.
Okay.
It's why a draft makes for a better military.
Yes. Right. Or makes for better decisions what's done with our military.
Yes.
That's for sure.
It makes certainly your country more involved if you had a draft.
Yeah. And
it should be against the law to send your child to a private school. If it were against the law to send your had busing worked, had they stuck with busing, maybe shortened the distance a little, this country would be a much smarter country. But that's one of the reasons we're so stupid.
Busing was such a bad idea.
Well, I understand that busing really destroyed Pasadena's school district. And Pasadena, and you know what? That's the worst part about Pasadena? They have these beautiful, beautiful schools, and most of the middle class have taken their kids to private schools. And they just have, a lot of alternative type schools that are doing very well. But it's sad because our public schools, I agree with you about public schools 100%.
I went to private, public, and parochial schools when I was a kid, and I ended up being kind of a deadbeat, so...